Welcome back. Still don't have everything squared away, but it's good to see everybody. Welcome. So, kind of have, some stuff that I planned roughly last minute-ish, so just bear with me on this one. But it's been about a month since the last live stream, or at least monthly live stream. So for folks who just subscribe to this channel, and there are 2,596 of you since the last monthly live stream. So welcome. I'm probably going to end up calling you the Brandenburgers, because most of the subscriptions came from a handful of Dr. John Brandenburg videos. So welcome. But for those who are just joining this monthly live stream, I typically do one live stream a month, and then I just started the Through a Glass Darkly radio in conjunction with United Public Radio. So I'm doing one of those every Sunday night, and the goal behind that is to bring back a bunch of folks that I've interviewed already under test conditions, pre-recording, all that good stuff, so that when they go live, there's no disasters. Even though there was kind of one minor disaster where you have a guest that doesn't show up, but it'll be fine. These things happen. But it was good to have that early, so I learned how to tap dance. But I've been tap dancing on this live stream for quite some time. So anyway, y'all are quiet tonight. That's fine, because I actually have something semi-planned. But I guess the best way to proceed is we'll just quickly go through some channel news. So, as you know, several weeks ago, I started this Through a Glass Darkly radio show, which I can't even explain how, if I explained how it happened, it was kind of years in the making, and then just kind of serendipity and things fell into place. I didn't ask for it. I didn't seek it. It just fell into my lap. And it's good to acknowledge luck, because that was kind of a mixture of luck and, if you're extremely generous, you might say skill. I would not add skill, because clearly, for those of you watching, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, or at least I'm good at faking it until I make it. So when I first did this radio spot, right, it was like on a Sunday night, basically dead air time, okay? So my first show had about, across all different platforms, and not all of these are my own, had about, under 17,000 people, unique viewers. The last one that I had about 72,000. So it's getting better. I've done 5 so far. And next week, or this Sunday, which is next week, I'm going to have um, Terry Lovelace on, and I'll send him a reminder this time. But he just got the dates mixed up. It's not a huge deal. So Terry will be on then. So that's kind of how the radio show thing. That's the concept behind that. In terms of the podcast, in the last month, it's fine. Finally, after 2 years, it finally showed kind of the exponential, the start of the exponential component in an S curve, right? So to give you a sense of that, the last time we did this live stream, I had 4,505 subscribers, and as of this very moment, we're at 7,101. So it's been an immense amount of hard work to get here, and I couldn't have gotten here without folks spreading the word and all that stuff. I mean, there's still a long way to go, but I finally feel like all this effort that I'm putting into this channel is at least starting to show green shoots. So thank you everyone for that. In terms of upcoming episodes, there is a new documentary called Transmedium that came out yesterday. I interviewed the director and one of the participants in that. It's all about USOs. I'm currently editing that. I'll probably play that next week on Monday. I'll probably push the Mick West episode either later in the week or the week after, the one about guerrilla skeptics. But if any of you have any strong opinions about that, let me know and I can do something about it. Good to see you. Happy Wednesday. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking on in that sort of area. In terms of, I have another Sean Ace Bjorn Hargens episode on the Fae, because apparently he's an expert on that, and I haven't done anything on that topic. So you would have seen him today. I have that coming up. I have another Mick West episode on the guerrilla skeptics, and then I have the episode on Transmedium, all about USOs and things related to that topic. Hopefully next week or the week after, just depending on editing time and all that madness. So that's kind of how the channel is progressing. So I'm not gonna belabor that or waste any more time. We already talked about, I just told you, the upcoming episodes, so I'm kind of jumping the shark on that. And so I think one thing that I wanted to discuss, I can see the one problem, I should really get more than one screen, because this is not at all efficient in any reasonable way. Okay, so I'm gonna just do a quick geopolitical update, and that's just kind of correlating some weird things that I've seen going on, and bear with me, and I will show you in a moment if I could get this right. Okay. So there's some sketchy things that have happened in the past week that the U.S. news media, like, way over their heads. No clue. No, completely blah 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 blah. Whatever. They don't know. They don't notice anything. Okay, but let's pull this up. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Okay. Huh. Okay, so one of the things that kind of happened this week. Wow, that's really not helpful. I'm getting like unresponsive pages here. Okay, so we're on March 5th. Really, Qualcomm, this is really not helpful. Okay. All right, so hopefully everybody can see that because I don't know if you can see this. Nope, you can't see that. Awesome. All right, there we go. Just in time for a fantastic commercial from Fierce Wireless. Just, for the interruption, I highly advise no one to buy anything from these people. Okay, so apparently the New York Attorney General is investigating this outage. It affected about 70,000 plus customers. They're talking to the SEC and the U.S. government about the disruption. So they have this probe. Now AT&T's blamed it on an internal process error. Okay. But they're interested in 911, so even 911 services were out. So you can believe the story, kind of the official story, that is what happened, or it could be a rehearsal for something else that happens in April. And that thing, which might happen in April, could potentially happen in April, is Taiwan. So just file this, put it somewhere in your head, okay? In the same week, we also had an Instagram. Well, I don't know if it was the same week, but I think earlier this week, kind of within a week, we had this Facebook and Instagram outage. So I'm sure that was also just random, some process broke down. But the timing, again, is pretty interesting. Okay? So moving on, earlier in February, I think around February 11th, wow, this is really special that it doesn't. Just give me a second. As you all know, Mitch McConnell recently stepped down. Okay? About a week or so before he stepped down, he's married to Elaine Chao, who is the daughter of the founder of this large shipping company that it's kind of a bulk dry shipping company that ships goods all around the world. Okay? Particularly Japan and China. Okay? And in the US. So, in this particular case, Angela Chao, who's the CEO of the company called the Foremost Group, she was the sister-in-law of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who, as you all know, announced he's going to step down as Speaker in November. More on that, by the way. Let's make sure you all can hear me. Good, I'm not on mute. And let's make sure nobody's complaining. Oh, Terry Solaris said we just had the insurance company hacked too. Yeah, there's something going on that our leaders are not telling us about, which is no surprise. given the level of sheer incompetence that we're seeing at the national level. I think the population probably would be stunned. But anyway, this woman, Angela Chow, she was 50 years old. She was the CEO of the Foremost Group. She died in a crash on private property in Blanco County, Texas. And the Blanco County Sheriff Office wrote a letter to the Texas attorney saying this incident was not a typical accident. Okay? So it's still investigating this accident as a criminal matter until they have sufficient evidence to rule out criminal activity, the letter went to say. So she was the CEO of the Foremost Group, a family shipping business. Okay? So just to give you a sense of that, and I bet you it's not going to let me. Nope. This is so dumb. So dumb that it does this. So I just have to literally remove it. Go through about 8 steps. All right. This is the Foremost Group. Let's make sure I can see it. All right. So there's some locations here in Texas, in New York. And look at that. Shanghai, Hong Kong, and another city Mari in Japan. So New York, Austin, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Japan. In a bulk dry shipping company or a dry bulk shipping company. Why is that important? Well, if you're the CEO of a company that regularly and routinely gets massive data downloads of big data on manifests of cargo shipments, particularly emanating out of 2 cities in China and heading around the world or coming in, you could see any anomalies, particularly in the instance of a potential military buildup. And that could make you a target. Additionally, Angela Chow has like a ton of ties to Jiang Zemin, who was the prior president of China, or premier, whatever they're called these days, who Xi very publicly removed. So there's something going on beneath the surface. It might be innocent, but I doubt it. It seems very suspicious to me. Okay? And as if that's not enough, here, I got to go through this whole rigmarole again. Bear with me. Then we also have last year 24,000 Chinese nationals crossed the border. Okay? And I'm sure many of them are fine. There's a whole TikTok video that showed them exactly where to go, exactly where to cross. I would be shocked if even a tiny percentage of them are saboteurs for potential operations in the U.S. during the optimal time to invade Taiwan, which is April or May. This would be the time, and this would be the way to get it in. I talked to somebody who, had a discussion with somebody on Border Patrol, and typically when migrants come in the country, they segment them in 2 groups. The first group is like kind of the nine Chinese migrants, and then the second is Chinese migrants. The 9 Chinese migrants, according to many people in the Border Patrol, are actually very friendly. I mean, they are breaking the law, but they're very friendly and cooperative and really tend not to be too dangerous. Those from China tend to be overwhelmingly of military age, male, and pretty uncooperative and aggressive. So, I mean, I don't know. It just seems interesting timing. And I think if China were to ever seize Taiwan by force, this is about the only year China could probably get away with it. After this year, our elections will be done. There'll be a lot less distraction. Keep in mind that there are countries with a population of a combined 4.2 billion who are voting this year. Taiwan already voted, uh, and the result of the three parties that won, it was the party that China least favored, and they immediately issued a statement after the election, and talking about their disapproval, and also Xi said that the reunification of China and Taiwan was inevitable, quote unquote. So there's a lot of kind of sketchy stuff going on with that. Let's see. The other thing that I want to note, and this came out, this also came out recently, and this is actually, I don't want to say highly disturbing. I mean, it's highly disturbing to me, but when you say disturbing, people think you're going to show something gruesome. It's nothing like that. But this is highly disturbing. So there is news that came out recently. If I could read it myself, I would. In fact, yesterday, Russia says it is considering putting a nuclear power plant on the moon with China. Let me say that again. Russia says it is considering putting a nuclear power plant on the moon with China. This is horrifying to me. The Russians and the Chinese are like the people who are running our international relations right now are. I mean, I think this is the worst crew I've ever seen. And the last thing, your entire policy should be predicated on keeping Russia and China at each other's throats, not driving them into each other's arms. And this is effectively what's happening. So this is something that the first country to put a lunar settlement on the Mars, or sorry, on the moon, is going to control the moon. It's just once they're there, you won't be able to put your own colony, and you would have to dislodge it, which again would be unprecedented. So this is not very good stuff. And they're talking 2033, 2035. This should be our Sputnik moment. We should be, focusing 100% on developing settlements off this planet and kind of just getting out in space so at least we have a foothold. But yeah, this is not great news. So anyway, the world continues to fall apart in front of our very eyes. So I'm going to kind of stop there and then get back into some of the paranormal stuff. Well, good evening, Miss Tessa Marie. It's good to see you. Okay, so let's remove this guy. Stop share. And then I'm back. Okay. Now, a bunch of other random things I wanted to talk about. All right, so this is this is kind of weird. And some of you know about this, many of you probably don't. So one of the things that I've done recently is just run some of my own kind of personal experiments. Okay? On some of this woo stuff. And something really weird happened. If I could... Thank you for bearing with me. I'm like struggling with my IT right now. Okay. Okay, let me just find this. All right. Okay, let's see. Let's just do this so that people can actually see it. Maybe go like that, or no. All right, I'm just going to zoom in so that folks can actually see it. All right, so 5 months ago, I had this random dream, and I just decided to write it down and publish it on my community tab. Okay, so many of you already know this, but I'm just going to go through it. So, and I'm going to read it for folks who are listening or can't see it right now. All right, so this is something I wrote 5 months ago. So last night I revisited the quote unquote event that will change the world remote viewing session that Daz Smith, Edward Reardon, and other remote viewers did. While I had many other dreams I don't remember, the one I do remember is a glimpse I got of Senator Mitch McConnell slowly wrapping figurines in his Senate office in wax paper and putting them in a white box. He was not hurried at all, and frankly seemed to be kind of annoyed. Then I got a sense that he was heading quote unquote underground. Whatever that means. But I want to be very clear, there was no sense of panic or fear. This seemed to be a planned move out of the office. So, is that precognitive? You can be the judge of that. It sure as hell feels precognitive. It wasn't like I was itching to have a Mitch McConnell dream. Right? That's just weird. I just had a dream, and this figure shows up in my dream, this American politician, and that's the imagery I get. So I would interpret that as a precognitive hit. People might say it was already in the zeitgeist. You were just kind of feeling the energy, and you had, it's a reasonable analytical conclusion you could draw. I don't know. You be the judge, but I thought it was really freaky. And by the way, I think that's the fourth one or the fourth hit I've had this year. So, and this is not something I think is I know, right? Like the turtle shows up in your dream. Like, usually if I dream about a public figure of some sort for no apparent reason, that's usually a cue that there's something weird going on. The first time this happened to me, and I didn't write this down, so choose to believe it or not. But one night I had a dream about the Unabomber Manifesto, like the philosophy, the anti-industrial society sort of thing, which I was just like, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. What, like, just randomly, like I wasn't even thinking about it in the days before. It was just this weird thing. I woke up the next morning. I went downstairs, and Ted Kaczynski was trending on Twitter, and the reason he was trending is he died that day. So, just, and I don't think this is anything special. I think everybody can do this. There's a book, or there's an interview I did of Eric Wargo. Actually, I did 2 interviews with him. He wrote a book called Time Loops, and he looks at precognition, and he looks at all the various books that came out before major natural disasters. There's a book about a ship called the Titania that sunk near the in the Arctic Ocean, that came out several months before the Titanic actually sunk or sank. So this is, I think, a normal human ability. If you just pay attention and just write your dreams down, you will probably have a precognitive hit at some point. So just pay attention and kind of do it for yourself. Keep a diary, a dream diary. What I do is I just write the more salient ones I have, ones that don't make any sense why a certain figure would show up. Usually that's the tell for me. And then I kind of put it in. Also, try to, if you become aware that you're in a dream, I've started noticing that I was kind of able to figure out I'm in a dream. Like, that's also something that's, until you start paying attention to it, you don't really notice it. But I had another dream where I was on a train, and I had a laptop, and I left my bag in there to go to do something. And then I came back, and somebody had stolen my laptop, and I was pissed off, and I was like, oh, it's going to cost all this and that. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm in a fucking dream. I'll just reset. So I reset it, and the laptop was in the bag, and everything was fine. So again, this happened like this week. So weird. There's something weird in the zeitgeist right now. And by the way, I don't like. You don't have to believe me. If you don't believe me, good for you. If you can find like a rational explanation for that, good for you. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to share an experience, and it could be a complete fluke. I'm not saying like I'm not I have no idea, right? I'm just sharing some of these weird things that have happened, but it's not like I can control it, right? It's not. Well, maybe I've tried other experiments, but I have no idea if one thing that I want to try to do is, but you got to let somebody know ahead of time. Where I'm like, I'm going to visit you in a dream. Let's see if that works. But I think I was successful once doing that, but I'm not going to repeat it because I have no idea if the other party was. Yeah, I'm trending toward precog too, but I don't know. That's why I wrote it down. I was just like, let's just see. I have no idea what this is, but I'm going to write it down so I have a track record, so nobody can say you didn't have that dream. It's just BS. So yeah, we shall see. All right. So I think I had something else. Yeah, I did have something else. I got to be careful. I got to be careful with this one because let's read the room. Let's read the room and see if people want to talk about this. Oh wait, hold on. Before I read the room. Yeah, but sometimes you can misinterpret something that happens though. Like in terms of my experience, right? It's taken me a while to um, kind of get okay with it. All right, I'm gonna kind of take a verbal poll. So please comment on this or please message because I don't want to talk about it um if there's no interest. Has anybody seen the Dr. Michael Moran interview on Project Unity? I'll wait because I'm not going to touch this thing unless there's sufficient interest because I have some thoughts. But there are people on Twitter who have way more thoughts than I do. All right, so we have a nope so far. So if I don't hear more interest, I'm probably just going to skirt it entirely. Oh. All right, let's see. How can we do this? All right. Bear with me. Let me see if I can. I mean, it's. I'm gonna try to find it on Twitter, and then just use that as a place to. Okay. Um. Let's see. All right, I found it. All right, here we go. I'm super slow and kind of moving this stuff around. Let's see. Okay. All right. All right. So let's see some of this. Reset. Share screen. This is so cumbersome. Okay. Now I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this or not. So just let me know if you can hear this.
In 2017, my last job, I was working with SOCOM and NASA, and in that capacity, in that job and in that mission or operations, you can call it, I started to learn about remote viewing, and I had no clue what it was.
Are that in NASA or in SOCOM?
Let's just say both. And And so when it was brought to my attention, I want to say I didn't really believe in it. I thought it was very hocus pocus, very non-believable. I'm a skeptic, very much. And that's kind of that was my introductory period, to all this kind of work. And upon getting out of service, I took about a year.
Now I'll give you some background on this guy before, or you know, as soon as he finishes. I'm not going to play too much, but just for you guys to get the gist of it.
Hang out with my family again and kind of see where I go from there. It was about 2019. I got a phone call, and that phone call led me to an interview down in Los Angeles with some very prominent people with an intelligence organization. And that led me to the very beginning of which I would say would be my new career, and which has led me to where I am now, and which is very fascinating when I look back at it now, because when I look back at it, there was a lot of mentoring. There was a lot of handheld, right? And like when I wanted to go do something, a colonel would tell me, "No, you're going to go do this. You're going to go do this MOS. You're going to get you're going to reclass." And it was something I didn't want to do, but I had to do it. Um, and now looking back at that, if I didn't do all those things and complete all that stuff, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. And I'm very happy, with the people that I work with what I do, and have the opportunity to participate and help in certain programs and projects. And
All right, I'm going to stop there just to kind of again read the room, because I want to be very careful about how I kind of cover this. So, what do folks think so far? And I'm going to remove this too. There's no reason to still have this up. Again, just put it in the comments so we can see what, like what's your gut tell you about this guy? I'm hoping you can't read my face, or at least what I think. And I want to be very clear that I really don't know, so my opinion is worth, you know, it's not worth a cup of coffee. Oh, come on, y'all. What's your? Oh, here we go. Here we go. By the way, thank you, Miss Tessa Marie, for sticking your neck out there first. I appreciate you for that, because that takes some courage. Yeah, totally fair. I mean, again, this is just kind of like initial. Yeah, that's another legitimate take. Because I also like, I had a very strong reaction. I'm not going to say what though, but um, I want to see if I'm typical or not, because there was a lot of stuff that went on, and there's still stuff. There's some angry. Well, all right, okay. I tipped my hand already. There's a ton of angry people on UFO Twitter about it. So I'm just going to lead with my conclusion and then kind of explain how I got there. So, oh, here, let's see. I think he's legitimate counterintelligence. And the reason I think that is, and I'm not going to show it here, but he had like three different resumes with his name, and some of them had things that seemed correct, and then others, when people would check up on them, were highly misleading. Okay, so as an example, he had something like he had kind of a special forces background, and his MOS was 18 Foxtrot, right? Which I believe is 18 MOS is coded for Special Forces in the U.S. Army. Okay? And an 18F is a Special Forces Intelligence Sergeant. All right? That tracks. Now, his demeanor and manner and the way he speaks, if you look at much of his written communications online, it's rife with grammatical errors. Okay? And for those who haven't served in the military, right, there's usually, officers tend to go to college first, unless they go to OCS, in which case they might go to college, after. But they're just, if people who are officers just tend to be better educated, not smarter. Many of them are actually dumber, but they're just better educated. Okay, so it's clear to me that he was enlisted in the Army at some point in time, and a Special Forces intelligence sergeant would gain him access to this environment. Now, I'm not sure what kind of counterintelligence operation he's a part of, but like I said, he had 3 different resumes. That PhD you see, you can buy for $19.99, and it's in like some sort of like theological studies off of some diploma mill website. But it's real. It appears to be real. So the other thing that at the very beginning of that video, John Ramirez, who's retired CIA, vouched for him. So when I first saw the video, I had an intense form of Miss Tessa Marie's reaction. Like, my reaction was, if this is the caliber of person that we disclose the most closely guarded secret that the U.S. government has, we're done. It's over. It's over. The country's done. But then the other thought I have is maybe he's seeking to discredit somebody. And at first I thought, you kind of listen to tidbits what he's talking about in his speech or his interview, and he kept like touting Dr. Jack Sarfati. And if folks who are in this community know about Dr. Sarfati, he is his legend precedes him, let's just say. Has this irascible, feisty, kind of malignant narcissist personality. I kind of like him personally, just because he doesn't take any shit from anybody, and I appreciate that. And he's direct. He will tell you to your face what he thinks of you. I can get on board with that. I don't like people that talk behind your back. Like, in fact, I despise people like that. This guy, he'll tell you. He'll call it like he sees it. Now, a lot of people don't like him because of that, and I understand that and I get that. However, he's been talking about his theory for a very long time about how he's defeated gravity and all that stuff. And I think, again, I'm not a physicist, but if he was directly over, he might be near target adjacent, but if he was directly over target, he wouldn't be talking in public. And if he continued talking in public like that, you might find him missing. But this guy, Moran, was talking him up. Like, oh, he's the best, he's the greatest, I love this guy. He knows the secrets of the universe. So I almost think this operation was to encourage the Russians or the Chinese to waste resources and go all in on this particular method of anti-gravity. I could be wrong, but that's the only thing I can draw from this, right? Because he's either, I think he has a counterintelligence role, and I don't like. the debate right now is that he's just like a hoaxer. He's not a hoaxer. The other thing that was interesting is that the UFO community is sometimes kind of like weaponized autism, right? And they found out like a lot of stuff, and he had to kind of take some stuff down. But he spent time, based on a complaint on a vacations website. He spent some time at Fort Belvoir. Now, for folks who don't know anything about Fort Belvoir, I believe the intelligence support activity is located there. And that's somebody working in Special Forces intelligence. That might be a natural career progression to go into. So, anybody who's seen my interviews of David Morehouse back in the 80s and 90s worked at the ISA, which is also variously. Back then, it was Royal Cape. It's during the War on Terror. It was referred to as Task Force Orange, and I think it was also referred to. I'm gonna look this up because I might get it wrong. Um, let's see. Yeah. Okay. No, I wasn't. I had it right. It's also known as Gray Fox, things like that. But what they do is they provide intelligence support to like tier one, tier two, tier three special operators, right? So, and it's just general intelligence activity that is much more secret than, several layers down. So, Morehouse, when he did his Operation Torn Image, where he caused I'm trying to think of an intra-cartel and intercartel war where he would burn out the three Colombian cartels by through a strategic deception campaign by which they thought that someone was poisoning the rival cartel was poisoning their crops, and they would just do it, and that there was a pathogen that removed the psychoactive component of cocaine, right? Like those sorts of things is something the ISA does. So there's also a movie that's out there. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's just like it's kind of like the military's some of the capabilities that the CIA might have, because I know during the War on Terror, JSOC was getting really frustrated with the CIA because they wouldn't, they weren't as aggressive of going into a war zone and doing intelligence operations. So they started leveraging this group, the ISA. So he definitely appears to me to have a military demeanor and a background, but he also did not strike me as somebody with a PhD. And it turns out that he has one, but it's a degree for a fee, right? You can put that, you can patent that. He's got a degree for a fee. So anyway, he's doing something. It's related to disclosure. I don't know what though. It's hard for me to tell. But all the storm and drang that you're seeing on UFO Twitter is wasted energy. It could also be that he's there for exactly that, to distract us from other things. So just, take that with a grain of salt. It's just my opinion. I think he's a counter intel guy. And I think he's just part of this. I don't know what his role is, but it could be to confuse our adversaries. So take it for what it is. But it got so bad that he had to remove. He had to call. He had to call. People like a bunch of idiots were like threatening his life and stuff like that. Like it's just not okay. It's not okay. So, like I said, I don't think he's some like fancy scientist. Remote viewing, I can't speak to. I don't know. I've never heard his name before, but why would I? Right? If he's working on classified remote viewing, the last thing that the government would want would be to have this guy's name out there. Right. In fact, the original remote viewers of Project Stargate, their identities were highly protected. A lot of people didn't even know who they were and things like that because, if the Soviets at the time found out, they'd probably whack him. So, um, we'll see. But again, he had 3 different resumes with stuff that didn't even make any sense. It was inconsistent, and I think that was deliberate. I think they were probably covers, or maybe he's getting out of the military or the government service and trying to beef up his resume and make himself look more impressive. It could be something as simple as that. But he's not fake. The guy's not a fake, even though at first glance he appears to be. And again, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna leave it at that and move on, and let him do whatever he's destined to do. Let's see. Yep, let's. Yeah, no, I think Ramirez is legit. Again, they're running this disclosure process, and there's going to be some of this stuff, right? It might be meant as bait to bait somebody to come out, and you know, maybe there's some program he's claiming he works on, and they're trying to get somebody to rat themselves and say, he didn't work on that program. I was there, and I worked on this, and then you just hooked somebody who disclosed classified information, and you got him, you caught him. So I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Who knows? But well, I'll tell you who knows. UFO Twitter knows. They are positive. Which way? I don't know, but they know. They are experts on this. They are the cat's meow. You better. Again, there's probably both positions on UFO Twitter, but they are all very certain. So I'm not gonna get in the mess because I don't know. I just gave you the data points that I have, but I don't have enough information to draw any firm conclusions about anything on this guy. But I do agree that just leave him alone, right? Like let the guy live his life and do what he's doing. I'm sure he has a purpose. He definitely has a purpose. I just don't know if it is. It could be that he just fumbled the football. It could be he's deliberately looking like a BSer. It could be any number of things. So I don't know. Yeah, they know everything. They are the the masters of their own destiny. All right. So let's see what else. Um, I just got to get this ready. So that's kind of all of the prepared material I had. So, oops. So at this point, we just do Q&A. If folks want me to expand on anything or have ideas for guests or any general material that you think I should be covering or um oh, I'm also starting to get like hate comments. So that there's that, which has been fantastic. But you all I think know my policy, right? But there's one word I swear to God, it I have words that I'll put you in the like that it there are blocked words, okay? And the reason I have blocked words is I don't want somebody coming in here and like putting a racial epithet somewhere and then me losing my Twitter account because somebody used the N word somewhere. So there's like words like that that it don't necessarily you don't get like tossed off, but your comment doesn't automatically go through. It has to like I get a chance to look at it and decide what to do. I never delete comments, so if you ever have a comment that's deleted, that's YouTube. It's not me. But if you come on and like start insulting guests and just stuff that's not helpful, like look, I don't censor anywhere but this channel because the point of this channel is not we're not here for debates and stuff like that. We're just here to know the truth, and anything that kind of distracts that, I don't delete. But the YouTube has this amazing function called hide user from channel, and this thing is the most insidious thing, but it is awesome. So what happens is if you get some guy who's just kind of a troll and he comes on and he's just like, he said nucleus. That's not a word. I don't believe anything he said after that. By the way, nucleus, right? Not nucleus, which is according to the right way to say it. I say nucleus because I've always been, but but one guest said nucleus like George W. Bush did. So suddenly everything he says is just, it's wrong. If you can't say nucleus properly, it's completely invalidated. So nucleus is a banned word because I'm just like, if that's your take, like, you're not operating at the highest level. Let's just say people mispronounce words all the time, right? Including very smart people. So I just didn't want to see. I was just like, oh my god, and because it's not like it's a novel concept. He mispronounced the word, right? It's just like, come on. Anyway, I'll stop venting on that. Let's see. I probably could, but I'm still. He was supposed to come on, and he just missed it. And it wasn't like anything malicious. He just like forgot. And I'd say, oh, I'd get back to him, and I just haven't gotten back to him yet. So I don't know. After what he did to Danny Jones, man, I don't know. You know, I like the guy, but like if he comes at me, I'll come right back at him, right? You know, you kind of your Brooklyn, thing. You're gonna get, you're gonna get the Irishman. The Irishman doesn't take shit. So I don't know. Well, I like that. I think I'd get along with him, but just because I'm a very direct person, but if he smacked me down on physics, I would take, because like he's that's what he does. I'm not like, I haven't looked at that stuff in like 25 years. So let's see. Yeah, when you go to sleep, just have an intention. Just say, I want to have a. With that Mitch McConnell dream, I just said I want to see if I can, regarding that remote viewing session that Daz Smith and Edward Reardon had. I want to see if I can contribute to anything, or like look at that in the dream, and that's what I got. And if you notice, it's tied to this Angela Chan thing, or maybe it is, right? So, but yeah, you can have an intention, or like, let's say you want to visit somebody, you say, I want to visit so and so in a dream. I've done that before, and they showed up in my dream. Now, whether or not that was my mental projection of them, or somebody, the actual person, I won't know. But it was like somebody who had blocked me on Twitter, and it kind of pissed me off. And I wanted to ask them, like, why they did that. And when I got to them, they seemed really shifty and shady. And I was just like, oh, this person's a fraud. And then I left, and I stopped, I wasn't worried about it anymore. And then it turns out the person kind of is a fraud, or has fraudulent characteristics. But I'm not going to say who that was. But it's somebody I kind of used to admire until they blocked me for no reason. So, I've also tried it where I said, I'm going to, I told somebody in advance, I'm going to try to visit you, and then they don't remember it, or I don't remember it, and it, or it just didn't work. So, usually just tell somebody, hey, can you remember if I show up in your dream? And then you can kind of experimentally verify that, right? If you can, do it over and over again. But you just have to have an intention when you go to sleep. I'm talking like I really know what the heck I'm doing. I have no idea. I'm just like, it's run experiments. Just run experiments and see what works for you. And that's about it. And you know what? What I could be doing could be like extremely dangerous too. I have no idea. So I'm just so frustrated with the government. If it kills me, I don't care. Right? Like, they're not like, I'm willing to engage in like exploring the unknown, because nobody's out there to tell you what works and what doesn't. Right? I mean, there's a ton of people who claim absolute certainty in these things. But how do you know? You kind of have to figure it out for yourself. And, after last year, I kind of just gave up. The government's not going to tell us this stuff. Or if they do, they're not going to tell us the whole truth. So you got to figure it out yourself. Oh, man. No. I heard something really dark about Victorian, like about that. right? Like, but it delves into politics. Like, what's Victoria Nolan good at? Orange revolutions, green revolutions, rose revolutions, just in time for the U.S. election, boys. So you figure it out. You figure that one out. That one's actually horrifying. I was kind of celebrating at first, but I'll just leave it at that. Just watch his interview. Like go to the Danny Jones website and watch his interview. Like he literally called Danny a quote unquote dumb fuck in the middle of the interview, unironically. And Danny like took it like a champ. He's very gracious, very professional. Um, I don't know. I would love to see somebody say that to why am I not to Frank Milburn in an interview. I think Frank Milburn would reach across and like anyway. Frank Milburn would have had a different, and I probably would have had a reaction somewhere in between. But for folks who've seen this channel, he's Frank Milburn's former British para, like great dude, but he doesn't. You know, he got into trouble a lot for fighting when he was in the British military, and they fight a lot. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, that kind of stuff is weird, and we all, I think most people experience it. They're just not paying attention. So you just have to pay attention and figure it out. Yeah, and there's probably a genetic component too. It's probably like, most people can play basketball, but not everybody can be Manute Bol, right? So like there's just interesting. Say more. What specifically happened to Nathaniel Gillis? Just waiting on the. So Nathaniel Gillis has been on this show. He's coming back. I forgot to mention that in the earlier segment. He's coming back. I think I interview him beginning of April. So his next video should be it should be coming sometime in April. He told me he had some new research that he wanted to talk about. So he's a super interesting dude. So here we go. Ah, yeah, that's not great. That's not a great thing to. It's not a great thing to say. I know another guy who was. I'm not going to say his name on here, but he was taking out of body training at the Monroe Institute, and he had like this premonition that his then girlfriend was cheating while he was at the Monroe Institute, and he turned out to be right. So yeah, it's weird how that stuff happens. And why are three stories of like women cheating on men? It's like it should be the opposite, right? It's kind of weird. Yeah, so ladies out there, us men can remote view and figure you out. So just don't be doing that. Don't be getting into that. Don't be doing that stuff because we'll figure you out. I'm just kidding, obviously, but I'm sure women can do the exact same thing. I don't think this is kind of there's a gender component to this. Maybe there is. I don't know. Again, I you have to kind of approach this from complete and utter ignorance, and not get too wrapped up in what the proper version of reality is, because I think it's crazier than that. Wow, that's creepy. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, there's when you so like my wife told me the story. I had no idea. Like we've been married for over 25 years. And she said when she was like a little girl, she used to do this thing with apple cores, like she or stems, like she would. I don't know what this game. She's like she would just go through the alphabet. It was like a game that her and her friends would play about like the man she would marry, right? And then she would always end. It was uncanny. She would always end apparently on H, right? Which obviously you can see for my last name. And then she only wrote like one novel, didn't do anything with it, but she wrote one novel in her life, and the protagonist's name was Sean. So, like, there's something going on with all of us with precognition, and we have these flashes of insight, but we're just not like a lot of us just aren't consciously aware of it. I should have you on and interview him. I gotta find. I just call you Marie or something because every time I'm like Miss Tessa Marie. But yeah, you've like I've had him on like 3 or 4 times, and I haven't gotten that kind of stuff. That's pretty good. Maybe, or maybe it's just happening all at once, right? I think when I interviewed Lynn Buchanan, not on the live stream, but oh yeah, that's the other thing. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about that. I completely forgot to put that in my notes. We got to talk about that. Okay. So what he kind of said is there are kind of rocks and um, like ripples or something like that. Like you can avoid the ripples or change the ripples, but the rocks are going to happen no matter what, right? No matter what you do, like 9/11 is going to happen, right? So I think there's probably some element of predestinate, but I don't think we understand time properly. I think everything's probably happening all at once, and we have these 3D linear time, models that we just or 4D models, right? If you include time as a dimension, so it's probably happening all at once. Um, but who knows? Okay, I'll call you Tessa. All right, so I don't know if you've all watched the live stream with Lynn Buchanan. For those of you who have been following the channel since the beginning, I've covered most of those things in prior interviews, but there was some new stuff that came out that was like there was some weird stuff that happened on that. So the one insight that I had was the Augsburg incident where he accidentally fried all of the skiffs in Europe on both sides, Soviets, etc. And it was in 1983. And then I kind of thought, and I got the name of the operation wrong, but the operation was called Operation Able Archer. And that was a simulation, like a simulated nuclear war that NATO was practicing against the Russians, and it freaked the Russians out. And it almost caused an actual nuclear war. But I'm not sure the exact timing. But imagine if you're the Russians and you're in that environment. And plus, he was gathered to present in front of all these NATO generals. So it was probably during the exercise when they were all gathered in Europe and doing this stuff. So imagine if the Americans and NATO is conducting this very aggressive posture of like a nuclear strike and all that. And you're the Russians, and suddenly all your skiffs go silent. Just think about that. All your like highly classified communications just zap out. What are you going to think? Right? It probably freaked them out and may have almost caused, and I think that's probably why it's super classified. But again, I'm just putting this is not something that Lynn has ever said to me or talked about because I think it's probably still highly classified. But that incident may have almost triggered a nuclear war. Maybe, right? If everything fell into place along the timeline. It was certainly in the same year, right? And it's certainly a highly sensitive thing. So that was one of the things that we talked about. The other thing was when we were talking about the four bases, right? So Mount Hayes, Mount Perdido, Mount Zeal. So Mount Perdido is in Spain, Mount Zeal is in Australia, Mount Hayes is in Alaska, and then there's another mountain in Zimbabwe. And one of the things that um, that Lynn said was that we probably had agreements with these things and they probably had access rights to certain bases. And when we were talking about the one in Africa, he said Tanganyika. And he's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to say that. 30 minutes later, at night, some guy knocks on his door and it interrupts the interview. He gets up and this person's trying to sell him like asphalt. Like I can fix your asphalt. Because there's some cracks here. Pitch black darkness in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Who's going to see cracks in asphalt? So, my spider sense says that there's probably a base under. So, Lake Tanganyika, it's the longest lake in the world. It's in Southeast Africa. Tanganyika was a former, I think, British colony and probably a German colony before that, or Belgian colony. I don't know which. But it is now part of modern day Tanzania. And Lake Tanganyika is under the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro, a little bit further. And then it's also south of Rwanda, which we all know the kind of massacres that happened there. So there might, and kind of doing some further research before that, or after that, there are at least two incidents where people were seeing cigar-shaped craft. One was in 1951, the other was in 1954, right? So imagine that the U.S., Roswell happens, agreements are made, they're given access rights to certain places that are, way out there, kind of away from human populations. Maybe there's a base there under the lake. I don't know. So, anyway, I'll just leave it at that and people can go nuts. For me, it's just conjecture. It could also be that he was deliberately saying that to just seed something. I don't know. Yeah, I think, Roger, I think you're right. And there was an example that Lynn Buchanan gave. Yeah, I'm kind of worried about that. I hope that doesn't happen because that's a disaster. What needs to be in a movie? I'm very curious what that is. Oh well, George Clooney did last time, right? He played a composite of three different remote viewers, but Lynn was one of them. And they had a scene where Lynn took out all these computers in some like Air Force facility, where kind of George Clooney's character did. So, hey, Mark G, good to see you again, man. Good to see you. All right, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we talked about. The other thing he talked about was when he was driving to like Tucson. It was like supposed to be a 3-hour trip, and it took 5 minutes. That was weird. And I'm like, well, what happened? He's just like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's in. As a separate. Yeah, it's the problem is that whole incident is classified. Right? He can't talk about it because there's probably some other stuff that happened that he just can't talk about. Like highly classified to this day. Yeah. Yeah, that's the way. And I think the paranormal, I forget what it's called. Um, it was it's called Pear. It was a laboratory at Princeton University that proved all this stuff is real. Right? Shows that you could that to a statistically significant level, you could, um, some of these abilities were possible. Bozzy 77, good day. A good day. I probably don't sound Australian at all. Probably a terrible accent. But I've heard of it, but I don't know. My understanding is a cosmic clearance had something to do with classification in NATO, like in that area, but I could be completely wrong. Then I think, oh, excuse me, I think there's like a Q clearance. Q clearance is something that deals with nuclear, anything nuclear. But good stuff. All right, what else do people want to talk about? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that. And there were a lot of good gems on that Lynn Buchanan interview. Um, he's such a good human. Oh yeah, I asked him about this is something that Grant Cameron had been saying for a while, and I'm like that can't be true. So I asked him. So for a while, Grant Cameron was saying that Lynn Buchanan was tasked to review or explore Saddam Hussein's, kind of like indication strategy, kind of what he's going to do during the Gulf War. And so he got in Saddam Hussein's head, and apparently there was a female monitor in the room, saw his eyes when he was remote viewing Saddam Hussein, saw Lynn's eyes change from blue to brown, and it freaked her out. She screamed and she left. So I asked him, "Is that true?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's just like, "I didn't know. I didn't feel any different, but she saw my eyes turn from blue to brown." So it's kind of creepy. Yeah, that's kind of my understanding. All right, what else? What else do people want to talk about? I mean, there's a lot going on. Things are coming fast and furious. Lou Elizondo came out with some kind of cryptic comment today, whatever that may be. That's about it. I'm starting like people are starting to reach out to me and starting to tell me kind of stories that I can't I'm not because I don't have permission to repeat them on the air, but had a really interesting conversation today and invited this person to interview them, but they're not ready yet. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But people start telling you stuff. It's kind of weird. Morehouse would tell you absolutely not. Uh, but I don't want to tell people that. I have no idea. I think just know if you can remote view somebody, I bet you they can kind of remote view back. Yeah, like I said, I can ask them, but I don't, I don't correspond with them very often. Usually, the only correspondence I have with Lynn is, "Can you interview?" Although I'm surprised, like I've seen him on like Jeffrey Mishlove, but I haven't seen him on anything else. Which is, I would expect to see him a little bit more, but maybe I don't know. Maybe either I'm the only one who asks, or he just, feels comfortable talking to me. Probably, yeah, I think probably. Um, oh, good. That makes sense, though. That makes sense. I mean, he should be on Daz's channel. Um, although, has anyone seen if Daz put the Pat Price remote viewing of the four bases up yet? Because he was supposed to do that, or he said he was going to do that in January, but I haven't seen it. But I haven't looked in the last several weeks, so maybe he has. But you got to go to his website, remoteviewed.com, I think. Remoteviewed.com, just to be clear. Yep, yep, exactly. For people who want to check, that's how you find it. All right, what other questions do folks have? Huh. You manifest it where others have it too. Ah, interesting. So basically, what you're saying, Roger, is you essentially move into another reality where everybody is the same or just different dimensional versions of themselves, but they all have that ability now too. Is kind of how I'm reading it, or most, or something like that. No, I'm still debating. Right, that's Courtney Brown and company. I'm still debating. I probably will. I think he's probably on my list, but I just haven't worked myself up to it yet. So I I've kind of gotten over it. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. You know, uh, you'll drive yourself crazy. Just live your life now. Live in the moment. Plan for the best, and then, or sorry, plan for the worst, expect the best. But I don't even know if you could prepare for it, right? I mean, you could stock up on food, but if you have a gang of like 20 armed people come in and you're just armed with a rifle, like they'll take the food. So the best you can do is just move to a place that has a well that's kind of relatively far away from people. But I mean, I'm not remotely prepared for something like that. Oh, so the idea of creating superbugs, again, gain a function to prevent aliens from gaining adaptive immune systems on Earth. Expose humans, we adapt. Then timeline of gradient. Yeah, maybe. But again, I don't know. I think it'd be better if you just told people. Yeah, yeah, probably. I mean, we've had all sorts of like MK Ultra, all sorts of crazy programs. That's a good question. Hmm. No, but I need to do that because I've explored just about everything. I just haven't gotten to that. I haven't gotten to that topic yet either. So, and I don't have an opinion on it. Like I've never seen anything that um would lead me to believe that. Yeah, maybe, but again, like who knows if an EMP happens and the dam breaks or wherever you are because the generators stop. I have no idea, right? So I mean, my bet would be to just go up into the mountains, stock up on food, ammunition, and just try to avoid population centers and go to a place that has relatively fresh water, right? Because that's kind of point number one. You need water, and then the problem with going up the mountains though is you'll freeze during the winters. You have to deal with extreme temperature variations. So just I guess have a lot of blankets and have a family near you so you can at least share the heat. But you have to assume that you're going to lose power. So you might have to firewood. I guess you'd be okay. But again, you're using firewood. People are going to find you. You're going to see columns of smoke and kind of be led. So you like there's a. It's kind of one of those things that you can prepare, but even if you prepare, you would have to have a good sense of what the specific scenario is. Yeah, I think it's both. According to Lynn, it's both. So I don't know. There's supposedly some big solar eclipse on April 8th, so we'll see how that goes. I had a weird dream where 456 appeared in it. I have no idea what that refers to, but maybe it's April 5th, 6 something, right? PM or whatever. But, or maybe it's, I don't know. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you have anything that has electronics in it, you're not going to be able to, unless it's like radiation hardened. It's anything with any solid state electronics in it is going to get zapped. So I'm sure you can do some research and figure out like if there's ways to like rad harden it, but and there probably is, but who knows? And that's the other thing. Like, let's say this happens, and then everybody's starving, and then a month later, the Chinese, the People's Liberation Army shows up. Um, I don't know what you're eating, but that's that's meat on the hoof for me. There's no way I'm allowing that to happen. Maybe, maybe. I mean, the problem with North Korea attacking South Korea is it just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, just correcting that. All right, sorry, I had to take care of something because there's a lot of noise behind me and it's starting to get to me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you kind of find a small community in like a small town, like it's possible, but you also have to consider that the South Koreans are in pretty good shape to defend themselves too. And if the North Koreans are attacking, they're gonna, you know, have to go through a bunch of like a wall of minefields and all sorts of like rock drops and all sorts of crazy stuff. It would not be pretty for them. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in that scenario, it would just be ejecting them, ejecting the Chinese off of Taiwan, right? And the reason we would care about Taiwan is because of the foundries, semiconductor foundries there, which account for over 90% of advanced semiconductors worldwide, 60% of just run of the mill semiconductors. And if we lost control of that island, or not control, but if that island were ceded to the Chinese, yeah, that's true. And you know what? Not necessarily like the people who you think are tough now. When they're confronted with something like this, they might not be so tough then. They might end up, doing other things, right? Like I don't want to use the word, but it rhymes with regicide. Um, oh yeah, I did this exercise in graduate school. You're looking at 30 to 40,000 dead in Seoul alone, and that was 20 years ago. So yeah, I mean, just go underground. If you guys got subways, go into the subway, and you probably make it. And you do. You have. I've been there. You guys have like there's like stores and like it's actually pretty nice. Seoul's a really nice city. I enjoyed it actually. It's the only city in Asia I've ever been to. is Seoul. I love the city. It's kind of like a mix of like L.A. and San Francisco, and then it's and the I probably had the best steak I've ever had in my life, um in South Korea. Sure, why not? Yeah. So it'll be probably a lot of people would like. I'm sure the military has like an evacuation plan and get people into the subways. So the question is if the North Koreans burrow into them because they have a bunch of tunnel. They have a huge tunnel system too. I imagine the winters are brutal. Yeah, I wouldn't say never. They have attacked before, but it's unlikely. I think it's unlikely, especially with nukes in the mix, because we do have that, right? Um, there is that kind of threat. I hope you're right, Roger. I hope you're right. Interesting. All right. Well, welcome everybody who's just joined. For folks who joined recently, so I think in the last, I said since the last monthly live stream, I've gone from like 4505 subscribers to 7,101 subscribers today. So it hasn't quite, it's been about up 60%. So a huge number of people just joined. So if you just joined the channel, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. And, as you can see, this is a little, not necessarily prepared. I kind of do a lot of fielding questions. We talk about different topics. I should have some way to like, if people are interested, like just pull in like one person from the audience or two people from the audience or something like that. At random times to just talk. Mainly people who've obviously been on the channel, who've been following the channel for a while. But um, who's special forces? North Korea or South Korea? The one thing the North Koreans have is they're absolutely fanatical. Like they're like nuts. Yeah, but so I mean the Rock Army is pretty good, right? I mean they're like super disciplined. They're pretty good. When I say rock, I mean Republic of Korea, ROK. For people who are like rock, what like there's like an army of rocks? Like what the hell are you talking about, dude? What else? Any other interesting stuff going on? Yeah, we should talk about disclosure and kind of the nature of reality in the sense that it just feels like there's like a quickening, like something's coming. I don't know what it is. I could be talking out of my, what? Oh, what's this? Yeah, yeah. Well, but they could also be like Russian Spetsnaz. We thought that they were amazing, and some of them are, but a lot of them just got crushed in the first invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, yeah. There's tunnels everywhere, and I'm sure they know where many of them are, but not all of them. Not all of them. And they're big tunnels too. They're like they're like Hamas tunnels where you can. I mean, you like drive tanks through some of them. Like some of them are that big. What else do folks want to talk about? I talk about anything. Well, anything geopolitical or paranormal, even though the paranormal stuff I probably know less well. Yeah. Yeah, I think we have bodies. I think that's real. I think that's there are other countries that have bodies that aren't the US or Britain or Russia or China. There are other countries that have bodies. Oh wow. Hopefully the South Koreans use that against them. Huh. So 4/10/25, like the year 25. I mean, Cat Williams is a comedian. What does he know? I mean, he could know something. I don't know. I don't know. I need to reach out to him again because I should kind of do like a follow up. Yeah, I bet you most are transdimensional. Huh. Oh, I just think I missed one. Hold on. Yeah, because I don't do just UFO stuff, right? And I think YouTube is very focused on like you have to be very like they call it niching down, right? You have to be very specific. And what I cover is where the paranormal meets military science fiction and fact. So it's kind of like it's a very specific thing that no one else is really doing, and I think that just confuses the algorithm. And the reason that John, you're probably seeing me now, if I had to guess, the video that introduced you to me or me to you, sorry, would have been the Brandenburg anti-gravity video because that one is like YouTube is heavily pushing that. Don't know why, but it just is, and I'm thankful that it is because it's bringing on new subscribers. So yeah, just if the stuff that I do, I've done a ton of work on is remote viewing, and I talked, and that's the intersection between the paranormal and kind of geopolitics because I interviewed a ton of the people from the original Stargate program. So like legit people who did this for the government in the late 70s through early 90s. So definitely check that out. And then I started working my way into the UAP topic, UFO topic, because it's just a natural adjacency. And then I'm also kind of going into paranormal. My personal view, and I don't have a hard view on this. It could easily sway based on the science. Is I think a lot of this stuff is based on science that we just, some variation of quantum mechanics that we just don't fully understand the whole picture of how reality works. And I think the paranormal is actually probably normal. We just don't understand it. And I think a lot of this stuff is linked more than we know. So I haven't done anything on cryptids yet, but I probably will because I'm curious. As an example, with a lot of UFO reports, there are very often Bigfoot reports that are commingled, and the problem is just like every other field, everybody is so tightly specialized that ghost hunters, there's kind of this hierarchy, right, where you have people who cover UAPs and stuff like that at the top of the hierarchy, and then you have kind of the parent or kind of the cryptid people below that, and they think it's the UFO people look down on them, the cryptid people look down on the paranormal people, and I think it's all related. I think there's all different variations of all of the above, and I could be wrong, but the more I delve into this topic, there are things that are distinct from ETs. There are things that are distinct from you just talk to a Catholic priest, and they who's like like the rite of exorcism exists for a reason. Like I've interviewed people who have been at exorcisms. I've seen things levitate, things being thrown across the room without people speaking languages that they never knew that are dead languages, all sorts of crazy stuff. So there's something more than the physical, and like I think that's clear. Science, I think if you're just look at the current science, anybody who comes to the conclusion that we're alone in the universe is not looking at the data, right? They're just not. The statistical probability of us being the only life to develop in a universe of trillions of stars and galaxies and whatnot is minuscule. Like, there's no way. Life would have had to have independently developed elsewhere, just statistically, in terms of probability and et cetera. So, anyway, that's a long meandering thing. I like I said, I've been fighting for about 2 years. I started this channel in January 2022, and have kind of the first year it took forever to get me to 1,000 subscribers, and then it was a lot faster to get to 5,000, and now it started to accelerate based on that one video. So anyway, that's a long meandering response that I appreciate that you're here, and I hope you enjoy the channel. I've been building it for a very long time, so thank you. Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's interesting. Taylor, which Taylor? Tim Taylor or Travis Taylor? Because there's a difference. Hmm. Who's KW? Oh, you're gonna tell me. I'm gonna be like, oh, duh, but I have to ask. Laurie Strickler. Huh. Oh, Joshua Cutchin. I think somebody recommended him last. I think on one of my earlier live streams, not like a monthly live stream, but I think it was the live stream where the Fordian live stream, Fordian literature live stream, where I had to tap dance on live radio in real time. Uh, but Joshua Cutchin, I have a interview scheduled with him, so we might get into that because I think he's written about all this kind of stuff. So that might be the natural introduction of the cryptid phenomena. Yeah, I should get Stephen Mera back on to talk about dogmen because that was associated with. We were just talking about the phenomena before the interview, and he was of the impression that if you're kind of going in the direction you're kind of supposed to be, what your path is, like things will start clearing out of the way. But if you start delving into things the phenomena does not want you touching, weird stuff starts to happen. He told me an example where like arms came out of his bed, and his wife, who like wakes up at the sound of a pin dropping, was completely out. But I asked him kind of what he was looking into, and the dogmen are associated with Sumerian and Babylonian demonology, and he's looking into that. And the more he and his partner Barry Fitzgerald were looking into that, then like strange stuff started to happen. Like he was getting like major pushback. But if you look at the Stephen Mera interview, probably the first one that I did, he talks a little bit about dogman. It's like a physical poltergeist, and it just feeds on fear. It's pretty dark thing. Let's see. We definitely covered a little bit of shadow people with Dolly and Preston Dennett. Not so much flying cryptids. Never like werewolf stuff. So, oh, it's Lon. I keep thinking it's Lori. Lon Strickler. I'll take a look. I'll take a look at him. Whoa. Huh. Interesting. I did. I think I've interviewed Dr. Campbell a few times. Huh. Wait. You say more. So Travis Taylor, I email him like it's like a game for me. I email him like once every 3 months, invite him to be on the podcast. Never responds, but I do it anyway because I'm like, I'm gonna keep doing it until you respond to me. Right? Just say no. Just tell me no. But if you don't tell me no, I'm gonna keep trying. Yeah, I think I'm too small for Cat Williams to show up on my show. Huh. Dr. Joseph Gallenberger. Wow. Huh. What's OM? I'm assuming some sort of meditation, but I don't know what the O is. Huh. Yeah, there are places in Britain where people see dogmen, and it chases these people until they freeze. If they freeze, it just kind of loses interest and goes away. It's like an entity that it's like a physical poltergeist that feeds on fear. Like there's a whole lore on it. But from talking to Steve Mira, it's real. It's a real thing. So there's a guy that you can't imagine. The guy Blitz. Oh yeah, that's Tim Taylor. That's Tim Taylor. Um, he's mentioned in Bledsoe's book. He's associated with like the NRO and NASA and stuff like that. Huh. Oh yeah, there's actually I forget what it's called, like somatics, or there's some science of vibration where like if you use the sound if you use the ohm sound, it actually creates a specific pattern in water, and then you can, based on different frequencies, you can kind of get these patterns. It's like somatics or some science of vibration. Fair point. Yeah, that's the other thing. Dogmen are well, I guess in Michigan I think they're reported, but the dogmen that I'm talking about are specifically in Britain. I don't know what the dogmen that are reported in Michigan are, but yeah, I think I think Imagine mention. I think I kind of just read through it. Ah, Josh Turner. I'll have to look him up. Huh. Let's see, Josh Turner. Yeah, it looks like he's the expert. Oh, he's got a ton of books. Well, I guess he's yeah. I'll have to look him up. Looks like he covers werewolves and the dogman phenomena and the Bigfoot phenomena. Wolf. Scott Pace. I have not heard of him. Let me just type his name in. Oh, Rougarou and stuff like. Ooh. He's done a bunch of interviews. I'm trying to see if I can. Yeah, I'll have to look him up too. That sounds pretty interesting. Let's see. Yeah, I've seen those. I think that Y Files did like a whole episode on those things. Yeah, it was pretty creepy. I don't. I mean, I have no idea what that stuff is, but oh yeah, like the levitation thing. That's actually according to Preston Dennett, it's been verified. Like people have actually witnessed it and recorded it. Catherine Austin Fitz. I'm just typing these names in so I can like look them up after the show. Oh, now I'm missing the Austin Fitz. Wait, what? She looks like she's an investment banker or something. Huh. She's in the housing and urban development. Oh, defense, finance, and accounting service and audit. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, so she looks like she's like like a finance person who tracks fraud. Yeah, I'll have to go back to that. Huh. Yeah, it looked like she was like an expert in looking into like like special not unsanctioned but like unacknowledged special access programs USAPs. Darius J. Wright. Wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. Not surprised at all. Yeah, there's a lot of good folks. I still have to reach out to Thomas Drake again in May. He was a whistleblower who uncovered a NSA well, not uncovered, but he was prosecuted for either revealing it or doing something that was totally fine. He didn't violate any oaths or anything, but the government just threw the book at him, and he survived through it. But it's basically that the U.S. is a massive surveillance state. The NSA collects everything, and they don't necessarily review everything, but if you get go you know if you become a person of interest, they have all the data of everything probably everything you've ever sent or ever done. Um, the Solari report. It does say it in this thing that I'm reading, but is the Solari report? Huh. Yeah, I don't see the Solari report for some reason. I'll have to do, I'll have to look at it afterward. Oh wow, I think it jumped. Hold on. Yeah, that's what's horrifying because people can just start tracking. Oh yeah, there's a whole episode on them coming either next week. Yeah, I think next week. Same guy. Like we're gonna do the whole episode on the she and like nature spirits, all that. People apparently actually see them. I know that what's the guy's name? Why am I not remembering him? Um, there's a radio host who's actually claims he's seen one. Who's in this like UFO field? I'm just not remembering him for some reason. Yeah, that might be a. You just made an argument about not having her on. Yeah, he's a. I think he was like Sean kind of Ace Bjorn kind of delved into like um either Wiccanism or uh, just nature spirit practices or whatever for like a decade. So he's a definite expert on that stuff. In fact, there's a book they publish every 5 years that categorizes stories of fairy encounters. Uh, you know, are they all real? Probably not, but there's probably some truth, in some of them. So, but his view it was less material. These sorts of things are less material. They kind of have what he calls subtle bodies, right? I think we all do in some different ways, but they're not they're not as physical as kind of people's ET's experiences are. Okay, yeah, I'll check it out. The Solari report. All right, it never ceases to amaze me that like the number of people watching, like it takes 2 hours to like build the peak. After I get rid of all my material and it goes away, I'm like, what do I? I mean, you guys have been great. You've been like feeding me stuff to talk about and educating me on a bunch of these people that I don't know anything about. Let's see. Yeah, this whole digitization of currency is very worrisome to me. It's just like, yeah, you're eating too much meat. Nah, you like I know you have enough money to buy it, but your money's not going to work here until until for another 2 weeks. Like that's pretty horrifying. Wow. Yeah, according to Sean Acebjorn, those sorts of beings are sliffs. That's what they're called, apparently. Yeah, look, look in front of you, look to your left, look to your right. Only one of you is going to survive past 2040. Good luck. I shouldn't joke about that, but that's essentially what he's saying. All right. What else do people want to talk about? Or I'm hesitant. I mean, they really teach me how to survive. They taught me how to like attack people in concentrations. That's what they taught me how to do. Right. So and defeat the U.S. military. That was my job. to defeat the U.S. military. So there's definitely lots of tips and tricks that I learned, but I I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing them with people because I don't want people to defeat the U.S. military. Um, but some stuff was super sophisticated, like uh, confusing radars on longbow Apache helicopters. That was like super effective. But when we went to see cockpit videos and asked, like, see how that worked, they're like, it's classified. Like, okay, so it worked. So that worked. So we did something to confuse the radars, and we also put out a bunch of like fake turrets, like tank turrets, and we had them attacking fiberglass turrets all night long. I'm not going to say what the other thing is because that is a component to make that work, but um, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. There's a lot of like a lot of cheap stuff, like stuff you can buy at Walmart and a lot of it's just based on deception. Just getting people to turn where you want them to turn so you can shoot them in the side. Just awful, terrible things. But let's see. Yeah. So, if you gave me like a tank battalion, I could do lots of damage. But other than that, um, you just keep a it's better to have the high ground, keep a low profile, uh, use the terrain to your advantage. In any scenario like that, your best bet is just hiding from people, just staying the hell away from people because that's where most of your problems are going to be. Is people just coming and just taking your stuff. Yeah, I don't like the entire premise behind that movie is ridiculous, right? Like Texas and California fighting Washington. Like, no, that's not where the divisions are in this country right now. Right now, it's primarily urban versus rural, and that ends real fast. And the reason that ends real fast is because the rural areas are where the food is. So, unless the cities where that divide is take the rural areas quickly, they're going to starve. So I wouldn't. I don't think I think Americans have such a high normalcy bias that the best you'll have is unrest. I shouldn't say best. The worst you'll have is unrest. Um, and or then that's kind of the worst. Like the worst. The worst you'll have is unrest, and that can be. I mean, depending on who's in charge, it can be relatively easy to stop, or it can spiral out of control. So, um, and I'm not going to comment on it because I don't want to get deplatformed or demonetized or anything like that. It's just not. It's not something you want to be talking about, or that you should be talking about, actually. Yeah, I mean, you can also hide in plain sight pretty well. Yeah. So there is an upcoming live stream this Sunday, but it's an interview. It's with Terry Lovelace. So just tune in on. It's already up. The next live stream for this, I generally post them about 2 weeks before the next month. So the next one will be sometime in April, and likely at the beginning. I try to do like in the first Wednesday of every month because I like to just knock it out and then kind of work on everything else the rest of the month. And then there's one every Sunday now, but that's on United Public Radio, but it also streams to this channel, so you can catch it here. Oh man, I don't like if there's a pole shift. Like we're just not. We're not. The only people who might survive are people in like under Cheyenne Mountain. Like you're just dead. If what happens, right? If you have like the massive tsunami and the like, you know, fires everywhere, like that's a mess. I mean, look, I admittedly haven't done a ton of research on it, but it just doesn't look like a survivable scenario. It's just, kiss your family goodbye, and then you just get crushed by supersonic tidal waves that are, because I live close enough to the coast where that would happen to me. I probably wouldn't even know what hit me. All right, what else do folks want to know? All right, I guess I'll just give it like 4 more minutes, and if folks don't have anything else to ask, I can. But if you're just joining now and you're one of the new subscribers who came, if you're a Brandenburger, I'm calling them because they all came from like one video. Welcome. This is kind of winding down. This is kind of where we ask questions, speculate, admit that at least I know nothing, but I've read a lot and I can talk about a lot, but that doesn't mean it's correct or, you know, whatever. But stuff's good to talk about. Elon Musk. Mm, um, there's good stuff and there's bad stuff, right? In terms of free speech, I think without him, the United States would be a much darker place. So I appreciate him for that. His stance on non-human intelligences, I think, is an act. I think he has to do that because he does so many government contracts with SpaceX. Because I know from at least one former employees from SpaceX is they see stuff, but they don't talk about it, and they're not allowed to talk about it. And if they do talk about it, it's like a taboo. You could lose your job pretty quickly. So my guess is if he wants to retain those government contracts, he has to toe the party line because there are no ETs, there's no life out there. I'm not sure if he really believes it, but he could. That doesn't mean he doesn't. Yeah, I don't think there's a secret because the whole Corey Good thing. Like that was there were people who started coming out saying that they were part of the secret space program and this and that. I mean, let me step back. We certainly have a secret space program, right? We have a bunch of classified military satellites and all that stuff. But do we have like off-world bases? I I don't think so. But I could be wrong. Like somebody could prove me wrong, but I just haven't seen there's no like footprint on the planet that you can really point to that shows that we have the like massive shipbuilding capability or whatever. But again, it could be wrong, right? There could be many different scenarios where maybe there's a breakaway civilization that's been around for 200 million years and they live inside they live in the inner earth or they live under the oceans and they have bases elsewhere and they're working with our government. I have no idea. Like all I can do is speculate, but I think it's really hard to keep something like that super secret. I just and then there's the kind of the Corey Good flavor of it, which I think is completely a complete fantasy. Especially since he was suing people who came out after him, saying the same thing happened to me. I was on the space war and this and that, and then he sued them for like copyright infringement. It's like, all right, you're not what you're talking about is not real. Yeah, look, it's possible, but I don't think it's probable. Huh? Yeah, I don't want to disparage these people, but I just don't believe them. I think they've been exposed as hoaxers. Or maybe not. It's not a hoax, but I think they're just trying to profit off of a really interesting story. Oh, were those entities living underground the Vrilya? Right. There's a book called The Coming of the Race back in like the 1800s in Germany, and there was like this race of superhuman beings called the Vrilya, and there's a whole like the whole Thule society and stuff like that. in the like Nazi occult. There's a whole thing like what's her name? Begins with an M, something Orsic, um, Madame Orsic or something Orsic. The name's not right, but oh, Corey Good just self-admitted that his story was all made up. There you go. Fair enough. Huh. Interesting. It's possible, or they just. Yeah, I reached out though. I actually reached out to Doctor Joseph Farrell. No response. So I can try again. But again, I'm still channel too small. So the faster the channel, the faster the channel grows, the more likely. I mean, look, I had a dialogue with Colonel John Alexander, Dr. John Alexander, and that was kind of his sentiment. It was just like, look, I mean, he didn't come out and say it, but it was just like, there's not, you don't get really a lot of exposure yet on my channel. You'd be doing more for me than I would be doing for him, and that's 100% true, right? And I appreciate that. I appreciate someone telling me directly, like, look, your channel's not worth my time yet. I mean, you didn't quite say it that way. I'm being very direct and boiling it down, but I prefer a direct approach where somebody says I can't do this because of X reason. I respect that. But when they don't reply, I keep sending. And I'll keep sending. I don't care if it pisses them off. If it pisses them off, they can let me know. Otherwise, keep sending. Keep sending. And I don't do it like crazy, but until you tell me no, I'm going to keep trying. Like, just have the common courtesy to say no. If you can't appear on something, just say no. Oh, does Farrell have a connection with Brandenburg? Because I could definitely explore that. Ah. See, that's super useful. That's super useful. Right? Like, this is the kind of information that is really helpful to people. Right? Because I didn't know that. I could try that approach. Wolsey's friends. Huh. Let's see. That's a good question. That's a great question. At least not manned, right? Maybe like when the pilots got back, the astronauts got back, maybe they were damaged in some way. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that it was faked. I don't think it was faked, but Stanley Kubrick would tell you that it was. Let's see. Don't worry, I don't know what you're responding to with "we have." Yeah, I think we went to the moon. I mean, look, but I'm not like if someone showed me compelling, like ironclad evidence that it was fake, then I would have to consider it. But I don't. I don't think we didn't go to the moon. But it is odd that we didn't go back. That's definitely. I mean, we went like several. It could also be that we have been back, and that we have built something up there. Right. I know if you read The Day After Roswell by Colonel Corso, there was a project called Project Horizon, and they were very concerned about getting to the moon before the Soviets did. And the same thing's kind of playing out now. Like we better be on that problem. But what do we got here? No, but it's probably like again we were talking at the very beginning. We were talking about precognition, right? Like maybe he just had that sort of a vision. I don't know, and he just kind of thought he was making it up, but he wasn't making it up, right? Like I created an anthology about us, of short stories about us fighting the Russians, and it came out in 2020. How do you explain that, right? Like, why did I just suddenly want to? Like, why was that my first anthology? Why did I have this? interest in doing that. I don't know. It's kind of weird. The city that the Russians just seized last week, Adivka. I wrote a short story about the U.S. U.S. Special Forces fighting Russians in Ukraine in Avdiivka. It was published in 2017 on Vice Media. It's still there to this day. You can find it. It's called Swarm. Just kind of they were already fighting the Ukrainians and the Russians, but I had like a whole other scenario in there after that in the future. So who knows? Okay, so we get that. No, I never said that. Although I was on Coast to Coast AM promoting that book, and I went through a whole litany of reasons why 2024 could be the year. I said it maybe a 60% chance because uh, George Norrie kept asking the same question, like, what do you think the probability is? And I said 60%. So I'm probably wrong. I hope I'm wrong because that would be a disaster if they did that. Yeah, I said I was going to leave 4 minutes ago, about 6 minutes ago. So, um, but I noticed that more people keep joining the stream, so I'm kind of conflict. Like, do I stay or do I go? Should I stay or should I go? Uh, I think less likely. I think if China is truly strategic, they will wait. I mean, there's like two. I'm of two minds, right? So the year of massive destabilization, when there'll be the absolute most chaos, where the Chinese could get away with the kind of where the world and the U.S. in particular be maximally distracted, will be 2024. If they wait, I think they won't need to do anything like that because we'll have plenty of time to build semiconductor replacement facilities in the United States so that if they decide to do some hanky panky in Taiwan, we won't care, right? We'll just kind of let it happen. So, but if they do it now, this year, like we have to do something because it's a vital national security interest for us because of the chip issue, right? You imagine if we lost access to that sort of stuff and, equipment starts failing, there's a cyber attack or multiple cyber attacks, you won't be able to replace electronics that get fried or electronics that die. Like, or if you do, it will be extremely expensive because we have, a plant that might be coming online that is like 1/20th the capacity of what they have over in Taiwan, and it's 55% more expensive to operate. So, yeah, I think 2025 is less likely because we'll have hopefully. I mean, unless we have the election and then there's a you know dramatic unrest, and the fact that we let in so many illegal aliens. I'm going to say that word. Mayorkas, whatever his fucked up notion of this is, they're illegal and they're aliens. So, they broke the law, and I have again the conspiracy theorist in me would say that it's deliberately being allowed so that there's unrest during the elections. You know, to I'm not going to go any further than that, but it seems super sketchy. There's no reason this should be happening. It doesn't make any sense other than that. Let's see. I mean, once somebody's settled and everybody agrees, I think the probability goes way down. Um, yeah, I still have to reach out to him again. Yeah, and I think yeah, exactly. I think most of them are in they're all in Arizona. So, but they're still like a super small percentage of the capacity that they have in Taiwan. to intelligence linked to orbs. Huh. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it could also be the long tail of the pandemic, right? There's a lot of weird stuff that's coming out about the I got to use coded language here. The genetic therapy that people were forced to undergo. You're hearing cases of like older people dying of Creutzfeldt Jakob, which is mad cow disease. So apparently, it causes some these things called prions, and prions are enfolded proteins. So, but that could also be related to the original problem. So I don't want to. Again, I'm using coded language for obvious reasons. Yeah, but that's still a lot less. Like the United States is like 75% reduction. That's, it looks like it's a quarter, something like that. So, what's that? Wait, am I doing the math right? Three, no, a third. It's only a third. Sounds like they're doing well. That's okay. Or not a third. Am I doing the math right? I'm like 30 plus, no, it's like 42. So, it's less than a third. It's not that bad. Yeah, but you're actually safer. You're actually safer than the US. You should be happy. Your probability of surviving is much higher than it is in the United States. You're in the right place, man. Huh. Yeah, that's not great. Yeah, I don't know what the Deagle report is. I don't know what the provenance of it. I mean, it's certainly scary, but I like I said, it all depends on what the nature of reality. It could just be you get what you manifest, and I just feel like I'm in a safe spot. Like based on all the criteria of like a good solid analytical uh understanding of the situation, I do not live in a safe spot, but I just feel I'm not worried. I feel like I'm in the right place. But again, it's like woo woo stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was like a former colonel. He worked for like the Rockefeller Foundation. He was on the Council on Foreign Relations, all that stuff. Yeah, but who knew? I've also seen different versions of that report. Right, it looked like Ireland got the like biggest hit. Yeah, they lost like 78% of their population. I mean, just depending on the different things. So it could also just be somebody just playing a joke, right? It's a pretty mean joke, but no, absolutely not. Absolutely. After what happened in 2020 or 2021, no, absolutely not. I shouldn't say this, but I haven't been to a doctor in 20 years. I don't go. That's stupid, and I don't recommend people do it. But after like the reactions that I had like my lymph nodes swell up under my arms after the jab, and that's never happened to me before, never, for anything. So no, I would not. No way would I take any medical. Look, I'm just gonna die a natural death when I die. I'm not messing with any of that stuff. Um, I also don't want to mess with pharmaceuticals. I don't want to be enthralled to anybody. Huh. Yeah, that sounds Russian. That sounds like a Russian thing. Again, this is you're talking about the Deagle, the Deagle report. Yeah, I think I look. I worked in San Francisco when the thing came, so it was like So despite what the initial narrative was, like San Francisco was the first city where that thing hit. And I got a bad cough for like 8 weeks. It just wouldn't go away. And there were members of my team that like one woman got really sick, but I think we had it in December, January of 2020 or 2019, 2020. And then that was it. But this orthodoxy that you must get it even if you've had it like was just out of control. Yeah, I mean, and there, yeah, we shouldn't talk about this topic, by the way. I mean, I've been pretty skillful in avoiding certain words, but eventually AI will be able to figure out the as it gets smarter. Like 2 years from now, this thing like get demonetized. Um, yeah, but to what end though? Like, why would they do this? What would be the point of doing it? Like, that makes no sense. Like, are you trying to depopulate? Like, what? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's better ways to do that. There's more like reasonable ways to do that, like psychological sterilization, right? I'm not going to spell it out. You can figure that one out. There's other ways that. I mean, if you look at the Western world, like we're not having kids anymore, right? So I mean, that's part of the reason why letting in all these illegal aliens. I'm deliberately saying that word, by the way. In the short term, is going to generate tons of chaos and instability, but in the long run is probably what the country needs in order to replace the workforce and have enough people to like sustain to generate enough social security income for people the rapidly aging population, like the way our demographic structure is set up. So short term it's an awful thing, long term it might actually be okay. Huh. Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, I actually thought Japan was like the like number one like slowest growing, but I guess South Korea is even worse. Uh, that's not great. Although Japan is like super over. I mean, like there's not a lot of space in Japan, but yeah, they're declining rapidly. The Russians too. Russians and Ukrainians. They're not exactly growing. Um, Chinese also have like a massive demographic problem with an aging population and excess males too, which was self-imposed. Let's see, Lynn Buchanan. Yeah, yeah. There's lots of corruption. Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that. The thing is, like, who's driving it? Yeah. Yeah, there's some evil people out there. I'll tell you that. Uh, I think we'll probably reject it. I mean, like the pandemic. If there's one thing that did is it like destroyed all trust in this like lab grown DNA genetically modified anything. Because people are just going to think that you're going to slip some RNA bomb into something, right? It's probably a good thing that they're coming up with things like that. But if you look at companies like Impossible Foods, stuff like that, like the meat is that the synthetic meat that they're creating is actually probably worse for you because of all the crap that they have to put in it to make it taste like meat. So again, I don't know for sure. I haven't done any research on this whatsoever, but that's anecdotally what I've heard. So take that with a very fine grain of salt. Yeah, he did have like some. There was an episode he talked about the people from Petra, like this uh, group of people that do a culling every several thousand years so they can increase their relative numbers over other people. But I mean, again, who knows? Who knows if that's true? Oh man, yeah, it's. I can see it. I can see that happening. Yeah, GMO. Yeah, for a very long time. So who knows? All right, what do other folks want to talk about? Because again, I'm in the dilemma where we've been going for 2.5 hours and the audience is still peaking. So it's like, why? Why? I've like talked about the like all this stuff, all the good stuff, and the thing's peaking. Yeah, that's disturbing. That guy seems like I gotta avoid like libel, so I'm not gonna say, but he's an interesting individual. Let's just say. Yep, I'm not gonna say it out loud, but yeah, he's a weird dude. Yeah, these people are like saying a lot of this stuff out loud, which is really disturbing. All right, I think I'm gonna give it 8 more minutes and then probably call it a night. So he didn't mean that. He didn't mean what he said. Yeah. Yes, he did. Sociopaths like that. Well, anyway, again, I gotta avoid. I'm trying to avoid. Just look, I never met the guy. I don't know him. But a lot of these people who become billionaires, like they just don't see other people as, people. They're in their own little world. Hello. What is it? The Woo and the Pooh DG? The Woo and the Pooh DG. Welcome. That is a very fascinating. I like the triangles. Looks like you got an aurora in there as one of them. So kind of like that icon. It's a pretty good icon. Is anybody coming over from the Linda Moulton Howe live stream that happens on Wednesdays? I bet you that's what's happening. Oh God, yeah. Who's the Salesforce guy? I know who you're talking about. Everything's amazing. Everything he says, it's amazing. It's amazing. Um, begins with a B. It's like Benioff, Mark Benioff. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they make all these plans, but if this stuff ever really went down, do you think his security force is going to just indefinitely protect him? I mean, they're going to eat him, right? Like the moment something like this goes down, this guy he loses his power, right? He no longer has access to like somebody who is a little bit more ruthless will take over. So that's what a lot of these like little nerds don't understand, right? All bets are off. The rules change. So especially if you're like starving And this guy like crawls out of his hole 6 months after he runs out of food, and he encounters like people who survived for those 6 months under horrific conditions. Like he's toast. They'll rip him apart. So I don't know what they hope to prepare for, but they could help prevent a lot of these problems. But instead, they're just kind of protecting themselves, which is par for the course. Par for the course. All right. I think I'm probably gonna call it, everyone. Anyone have any? What? It's peaking again. Like this is driving me nuts. Like, should I stay or should I go? It's peaking. Want me to keep going? Should I stay? Should I go? Yeah, but they run out. Somebody's got to like maintain them. Somebody's got to put oil on them. So, like, you think Zuck's going to do that by himself? No. Oh wow, you need a special invite. I think it's better to die than to join people like that. To be honest, a special invite. You want to be around those people? They're all sociopaths. Yeah. 50K special invite. That's just dark and evil. But that's the thing. Like those people don't understand. The moment they peek up over the surface, and people find out that special people living underground didn't have to survive the horrors that they just survived, like they'll be slaughtered. And you know what? They should be slaughtered. So I don't know. It's probably likely military. Like it's probably associated with Cheyenne Mountain and the Denver airport. Um, that's a little bit more understandable. If it's just a bunch of rich people, that's a little bit different. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean that makes sense. You have to have continuity of government. You have to have your military survive so they can come out and protect people as opposed to just taking care of themselves and then screw everybody else like Zuckerberg or Benioff. All right, I think with that, I think we peaked at 75 or 76. I think now it's probably back to 75. Like every time I'm about ready to like drop, it peaks again. Yeah, I would be surprised if it didn't connect to Cheyenne, the Cheyenne Mountain. Yeah. Did a study to hit 14,000 miles per hour. Good lord. Huh. Yeah. I imagine something happens. I bet you it's like this is just the scenario that I'm cooking up right now. I bet you some catastrophe happens. There's like three or four types of people, okay? There are these turd bags who kind of go underground and hide from it all. There's absolute savages who just survive on the surface. Then there's the people that they eat. And then there's probably a third group that, if ETs are real or non human intelligence are real, get picked up by them and either saved or eaten, depending on which variety. And, who knows? Maybe they, bring you back after the troglodytes come up back out of the ground, so you can wipe them out. Um, but I don't know. We shall see. I don't know who the Ogwad was, but I'd be curious what I said that was that said it that ticked off the Ogwad comment. Here we go. Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up. That might be a scenario. It doesn't mean it will happen. I mean, people just might just naturally perish, but just something to play around with. But like I said, I have this strange feeling that I'm just fine. I'm going to be just fine, and a lot of it is, oh, well, yeah, yeah. I mean, bad things happen when people get desperate. So there's an old Spanish proverb that says civilization and anarchy are 7 meals apart. So I'm not endorsing Alex Jones, but there is a video floating around where he's talking about exactly this, where he's like singing. It's like a song, like somebody made like a meme song out of like, because he speaks in like rhythm. He's got like a rhythmic kind of speech where it rhymes, but it is darkly sarcastically hilarious. But I'm not gonna post it here because it's in bad taste. Yeah, let's get off this. I mean, you can read The Road. Just read Cormac McCarthy's The Road, and you'll you'll get there. You'll definitely get there. I particularly enjoyed Blood Meridian, but that's more of a Western kind of thing that Cormac McCarthy wrote. All right, I think now is probably as good a time as any to end the night and say our goodbyes. So I appreciate everybody here. If you joined the channel recently, thank you so much. It's finally after 2 years starting to show some momentum. So obviously, like, subscribe, share it if you haven't already. Share it with folks if you enjoy it. If you're like, this guy's a lunatic, I don't have anything to do with him. I get it. People. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever commented that way, but if you say nucleus the wrong way, they will certainly let you know. So anyway, have a great night, and as always, it's a pleasure. And see this Sunday when I'm talking to Terry Lovelace. Don't miss that. And it's already posted, so you can get the details. So good night, and God bless.
Breaking news.